Chapter 100. Understanding leads to freedom. Questioner. In many countries of the world, investigating officers follow certain practices aimed at extracting confessions from their victims and also changing their personalities, if needed, by a judicious choice of physical and moral deprivations, and by persuasions, the old personality is broken down and a new personality established in its place. The man under investigation hears so many times repeated that he is an enemy of the state and a traitor to his country, that a day comes when something breaks down in him and he begins to feel with full conviction that he is a traitor, a rebel, altogether despicable and deserving the direst punishment. This process is also known as brainwashing. It struck me that the religious and yogic practices are very similar to brainwashing. The same physical and mental deprivation, solitary confinement, a powerful sense of sin, despair, and a desire to escape through expiation and conversion, adoption of a new image of oneself, and impersonating that image. The same repetition of set formulas. God is good. The Guru, Pati, knows. Faith will save me. In the so-called yogic or religious practices, the same mechanism operates. The mind is made to concentrate on some particular idea to the exclusion of all other ideas, and concentration is powerfully reinforced by rigid discipline and painful austerities. A high price in life and happiness is paid, and what one gets in return appears therefore to be of great importance. This pre-arranged conversion, obvious or hidden, religious or political, ethical or social, may look genuine and lasting, yet there is a feeling of artificiality about it. Maharaj, you are quite right. By undergoing so many hardships, the mind gets dislocated and immobilized. Its condition becomes precarious. Whatever it undertakes ends in a deeper bondage. Question. Then why are sadhanas prescribed? Maharaj, unless you make tremendous efforts, you will not be convinced that effort will take you nowhere. The self is so self-confident that unless it is totally discouraged, it will not give up. Mere verbal conviction is not enough. Hard facts alone can show the absolute nothingness of the self-image. Questioner. The brainwasher drives me mad, and the guru drives me sane. The driving is similar, yet the motive and the purpose are totally different. The similarities are, perhaps, merely verbal. Maharaj, inviting or compelling to suffer contain in it violence, and the fruit of violence cannot be sweet. There are certain life situations inevitably painful, and you have to take them in your stride. There are also certain situations which you have created, either deliberately or by neglect, and from these you have to learn a lesson so that they are not repeated again. Question. It seems that we must suffer so that we learn to overcome pain. Maharaj, pain has to be endured. There is no such thing as overcoming the pain, and no training is needed. Training for the future, developing attitudes is a sign of fear. Questioner. Once I know how to face pain, I'm free of it, not afraid of it, and therefore happy. This is what happens to a prisoner. He accepts his punishment as just and proper, and is at peace with the prison authorities and the state. All religions do nothing else but preach acceptance and surrender. We are being encouraged to plead guilty, to feel responsible for all the evils in the world, and point at ourselves as the only cause. My problem is, I cannot see much difference between brainwashing and sadhana, except that in the case of sadhana, one is not physically constrained. The element of compulsive suggestion is present in both. Maharaj, as you have said, the similarities are superficial. You need not harp on them. Questioner: Sir, the similarities are not superficial. Man is a complex being and can be at the same time the accuser and the accused, the judge, the warden, and the executioner. There is not much that is voluntary in a voluntary sadhana. One is moved by forces beyond one's ken and control. I can change my mental metabolism as little as the physical, except by painful and protracted efforts, which is yoga. All I am asking is, does Maharaj agree with me that yoga implies violence? Maharaj, I agree that yoga, as presented by you, means violence, and I never advocate any form of violence. My path is totally non-violent. I mean exactly what I say, non-violent. Find out for yourself what it is. I merely say it is non-violent. Questioner: I am not misusing words. When a guru asks me to meditate 16 hours a day for the rest of my life, I cannot do it without extreme violence to myself. Is such a guru right or wrong? Maharaj, none compels you to meditate 16 hours a day unless you feel like doing so. It is only a way of telling you, remain with yourself, don't get lost among others. The teacher will wait, but the mind is impatient. It is not the teacher, it is the mind that is violent and also afraid of its own violence. What is of the mind is relative. It is a mistake to make it into an absolute. Question: If I remain passive, nothing will change. If I am active, I must be violent. What is it that I can do which is neither sterile nor violent? Maharaj, of course, there is a way which is neither violent nor sterile and yet supremely effective. Just look at yourself as you are. See yourself as you are. Accept yourself as you are and go ever deeper into what you are. Violence and non-violence describe your attitude to others. The self in relation to itself is neither violent nor non-violent. It is either aware or unaware of itself. If it knows itself, all it does will be right. If it does not, all it does will be wrong. Questioner: What do you mean by saying, I know myself as I am? Maharaj, before the mind, I am. I am is not a thought in the mind. The mind happens to me. I do not happen to the mind. And since time and space are in the mind, I am beyond time and space, eternal and omnipresent. Questioner: Are you serious? Do you really mean that you exist everywhere and at all times? Maharaj, yes, I do. To me, it is obvious as freedom of movement is to you. Imagine a tree asking a monkey, "Do you seriously mean that you can move from place to place?" And the monkey saying, "Yes, I do." Questioner. Are you also free from causality? Can you produce miracles? Maharaj, the world itself is a miracle. I am beyond miracles. I am absolutely normal. With me, everything happens as it must. I do not interfere with creation. Of what use are small miracles to me when the greatest of miracles is happening all the time? Whatever you see, it is always your own being that you see. Go ever deeper into yourself. Seek within. There is neither violence nor non-violence in self-discovery. The destruction of the false is not violence. Question. When I practice self-inquiry or go within with the idea that it will profit me in some way or other, I am still escaping from what I am. Maharaj, quite right. True inquiry is always into something, not out of something. When I inquire how to get or avoid something, I am not really inquiring. To know anything, I must accept it. Totally. Questioner. Yes. To know God, I must accept God. How frightening. Maharaj, before you can accept God, you must accept yourself, which is even more frightening. The first steps in self-acceptance are not at all pleasant, for what one sees is not a happy sight. One needs all the courage to go further. What helps is silence. Look at yourself in total silence. Do not describe yourself. Look at the being you believe you are and remember, you are not what you see. This I am not, what am I? Is the movement of self-inquiry. There are no other means to liberation. All means delay. Resolutely reject what you are not, till the real self emerges in its glorious nothingness, its not a thingness. Questioner. The world is passing through rapid and critical changes. We can see them with great clarity in the United States, though they happen in other countries. There is an increase in crime on one land and more genuine holiness on the other. Communities are being formed, and some of them are on a very high level of integrity and austerity. It looks as if evil is destroying itself by its own successes, like a fire which consumes its fuel, while the good, like life, perpetuates itself. Maharaj, as long as you divide events into good and evil, you may be right. In fact, good becomes evil, and evil becomes good by their own fulfillment. Questioner. What about love? Maharaj, when it turns to lust, it becomes destructive. Questioner. What is lust? Maharaj, remembering, imagining, anticipating. It is sensory and verbal, a form of addiction. Questioner. Is brahmacharya, continence, imperative in yoga? Maharaj, a life of constraint and suppression is not yoga. Mind must be free of desires and relaxed. It comes with understanding, not with determination, which is but another form of memory. An understanding mind is free of desires and fears. Questioner. How can I make myself understand? Maharaj, by meditating, which means giving attention. Become fully aware of your problem. Look at it from all sides. Watch how it affects your life. Then leave it alone. You can't do more than that. Question. Will it set me free? Maharaj, you are free from what you have understood. The outer expressions of freedom may take time to appear, but they are already there. Do not expect perfection. There is no perfection in manifestation. Details must clash. No problem is solved completely, but you can withdraw from it to a level on which it does not operate. Chapter 101. The Gnani does not grasp nor hold. Question. How does a Gnani proceed when he needs something to be done? Does he make plans, decide about details and execute them? Maharaj, the Gnani understands the situation fully and knows at once what needs be done. That is all. The rest happens by itself, and to a large extent unconsciously. The Gnani's identity with all that is so complete that as he responds to the universe, so does the universe respond to him. He is supremely confident that once a situation has been cognized, events will move in adequate response. The ordinary man is personally concerned. He counts his risks and chances, while the Gnani remains aloof, sure that all will happen as it must, and it does not matter much what happens, for ultimately the return to balance and harmony is inevitable. The heart of things is at peace. Questioner. I have understood that personality is an illusion, an alert detachment without loss of identity is our point of contact with reality. Will you please tell me, at this moment, are you a person or a self-aware identity? Maharaj, I am both, but the real self cannot be described except in terms supplied by the person, in terms of what I am not. All you can tell about the person is not the self, and you can tell nothing about the self which would not refer to the person as it is, as it could be, as it should be. All attributes are personal. The real is beyond all attributes. Question. Are you sometimes the self and sometimes the person? Maharaj, how can I be? The person is what I appear to be to other persons. To myself, I am the infinite expanse of consciousness in which innumerable persons emerge and disappear in endless succession. Question. How is it that the person, which to you is quite illusory, appears real to us? Maharaj, you, the self, being the root of all being, consciousness and joy, impart your reality to whatever you perceive. This imparting of reality takes place invariably in the now, at no other time, because past and future are only in the mind. Being applies to the now only. Questioner. Is not eternity endless too? Maharaj, time is endless, though limited. Eternity is in the split moment of the now. We miss it because the mind is ever shuttling between the past and the future. It will not stop to focus the now. It can be done with comparative ease if interest is aroused. Question. What arouses interest? Maharaj, earnestness, the sign of maturity. Question. And how does maturity come about? Maharaj, by keeping your mind clean and clear, by living your life in full awareness of every moment as it happens, by examining and dissolving one's desires and fears as soon as they arise. Question. Is such concentration at all possible? Maharaj, try. One step at a time is easy. Energy flows from earnestness. Question. I find I am not earnest enough. Maharaj, self-betrayal is a grievous matter. It rots the mind like cancer. The remedy lies in clarity and integrity of thinking. Try to understand that you live in a world of illusions. Examine them and uncover their roots. The very attempt to do so will make you earnest, for there is bliss in right endeavor. Question. Where will it lead me? Maharaj, where can it lead you, if not to its own perfection? Once you are well established in the now, you have nowhere else to go. What you are timelessly, you express eternally. Question. Are you one or many? Maharaj, I am one, but appear as many. Question. Why does one appear at all? Maharaj, it is good to be and to be conscious. Question. Life is sad. Maharaj, ignorance causes sorrow. Happiness follows understanding. Question. Why should ignorance be painful? Maharaj, it is at the root of all desire and fear, which are painful states and the source of endless errors. Question. I have seen many people supposed to have realized, laughing and crying. Does it not show that they are not free of desire and fear? Maharaj, they may laugh and cry according to circumstances, but inwardly they are cool and clear, watching detachedly their own spontaneous reactions. Appearances are misleading, and more so in the case of a Gnani. Question. I do not understand you. Maharaj, the mind cannot understand, for the mind is trained for grasping and holding, while the Gnani is not grasping and not holding. Question. What am I holding on to, which you are not? Maharaj, you are a creature of memories. At least you imagine yourself to be so. I am entirely unimagined. I am what I am, not identifiable with any physical or mental state. Question. An accident would destroy your equanimity? Maharaj, the strange fact is that it does not. To my own surprise, I remain as I am, pure awareness, alert to all that happens. Question. Even at the moment of death? Maharaj, What is it to me that the body dies? Questioner. Don't you need it to contact the world? Maharaj. I do not need the world, nor am I in one. The world you think of is in your own mind. I can see through your eyes and mind, but I am fully aware that it is a projection of memories. It is touched by the real only at the point of awareness, which can be only now. Questioner. The only difference between us seems to be that while I keep on saying that I do not know my real self, you maintain that you know it well. Is there any other difference between us? Maharaj, there is no difference between us, nor can I say that I know myself. I know that I am not describable nor definable. There is a vastness beyond the farthest reaches of the mind. That vastness is my home. That vastness is myself. And that vastness is also love. Question. You see love everywhere, while I see hatred and suffering. The history of humanity is the history of murder, individual and collective. No other living being so delights in killing. Maharaj, if you go into the motives, you will find love, love of oneself and of one's own. People fight for what they imagine they love. Question. Surely, their love must be real enough when they are ready to die for it? Maharaj, love is boundless. What is limited to a few cannot be called love. Questioner. Do you know such unlimited love? Maharaj. Yes, I do. Questioner. How does it feel? Maharaj. All is loved and lovable. Nothing is excluded. Questioner. Not even the ugly and the criminal? Maharaj. All is within my consciousness. All is my own. It is madness to split oneself through likes and dislikes. I am beyond both. I am not alienated. Questioner. To be free from like and dislike is a state of indifference. Maharaj. It may look and feel so in the beginning. Persevere in such indifference, and it will blossom into an all-pervading and all-embracing love. Question. One has such moments when the mind becomes a flower and a flame, but they do not last, and life reverts to its daily grayness. Maharaj, this continuity is the law when you deal with the concrete. The continuous cannot be experienced, for it has no borders. Consciousness implies alterations, change following change, when one thing or state comes to an end and another begins. That which has no borderline cannot be experienced in the common meaning of the word. One can only be it without knowing, but one can know what it is not. It is definitely not the entire content of consciousness, which is always on the move. Question. If the immovable cannot be known, what is the meaning and purpose of its realization? Maharaj, to realize the immovable means to become immovable, and the purpose is the good of all that lives. Question. Life is movement, immobility is death. of what use is that to life? Maharaj, I am talking of immovability, not of immobility. You become immovable in righteousness. You become a power which gets all things right. It may or may not imply intense outward activity, but the mind remains deep and quiet. Question. As I watch my mind, I find it changing all the time, mood succeeding mood in infinite variety, while you seem to be perpetually in the same mood of cheerful benevolence. Maharaj, moods are in the mood and do not matter. Go within, go beyond. Cease being fascinated by the content of your consciousness. When you reach the deep layers of your true being, you will find that the mind's surface play affects you very little. Question. There will be play all the same. Maharaj, a quiet mind is not a dead mind. Questioner. Consciousness is always in movement. It is an observable fact. Immovable consciousness is a contradiction. When you talk of a quiet mind, what is it? Is not mind the same as consciousness? Maharaj, we must remember that words are used in many ways according to context. The fact is that there is little difference between the conscious and the unconscious. They are essentially the same. The waking state differs from deep sleep in the presence of the witness. A ray of awareness illumines a part of our mind, and that part becomes our dream or waking consciousness, while awareness appears as the witness. The witness usually knows only consciousness. Sadhana consists in the witness turning back first on his conscious, then upon himself in his own awareness. Self-awareness is yoga. Question. If awareness is all-pervading, then a blind man, once realized, can see? Maharaj, you are mixing sensation with awareness. The Gnani knows himself as he is. He is also aware of his body being crippled and his mind being deprived of a range of sensory perceptions. But he is not affected by the availability of eyesight, nor by its absence. Question. My question is more specific. When a blind man becomes a Gnani, will his eyesight be restored to him or not? Maharaj, unless his eyes and brains undergo a renovation, how can he see? Questioner. But will they undergo a renovation? Maharaj, they may or may not. It all depends on destiny and grace. But a Gnani commands a mode of spontaneous, non-sensory perception, which makes him know things directly, without the intermediary of the senses. He is beyond the perceptual and the conceptual, beyond the categories of time and space, name and shape. He is neither the perceived nor the perceiver, but the simple and the universal factor that makes perceiving possible. Reality is within consciousness, but it is not consciousness, nor any of its contents. Question. What is false, the world, or my knowledge of it? Maharaj, is there a world outside your knowledge? Can you go beyond what you know? You may postulate a world beyond the mind, but it will remain a concept. unproved and unprovable. Your experience is your proof, and it is valid only for you. Who else can have your experience when the other person is only as real as he appears in your experience? Question. Am I so hopelessly lonely? Maharaj, you are, as a person. In your real being, you are the whole. Question. Are you a part of the world which I have in consciousness, or are you independent? Maharaj, what you see is yours, and what I see is mine. The two have little in common. Question. There must be some common factor which unites us. Maharaj, to find the common factor, you must abandon all distinctions. Only the universal is in common. Question. What strikes me as exceedingly strange is that while you say that I am merely a product of my memories and woefully limited, I create a vast and rich world in which everything is contained, including you and your teaching. How is this vastness created and contained in my smallness is what I find hard to understand. Maybe you are giving me the whole truth, but I am grasping only a small part of it. Maharaj, yet it is a fact. The small projects the whole, but it cannot contain the whole. However great and complete your world is, it is self-contradictory and transitory and altogether illusory. Questioner. It may be illusory, yet it is marvelous. When I look and listen, touch, smell and taste, think and feel, remember and imagine, I cannot but be astonished at my miraculous creativity. I look through a microscope or telescope and see wonders. I follow the track of an atom and hear the whisper of the stars. If I am the sole creator of all this, then I am God indeed. But if I am God, why do I appear so small and helpless to myself? Maharaj, you are God, but you do not know it. Question. If I am God, then the world I create must be true. Maharaj, it is true in essence, but not in appearance. Be free of desires and fears, and at once your vision will clear, and you shall see all things as they are. Or you may say that the Sataguna creates the world, the Tamagun obscures it, and the Rajagun distorts. Question. This does not tell me much, because if I ask you what are the gunas, the answer will be what creates, what obscures, what distorts. The fact remains, something unbelievable happened to me and I do not understand what has happened, how and why. Maharaj, well, wonder is the dawn of wisdom. To be steadily and consistently wondering is sadhana. Question. I am in a world which I do not understand, and therefore I am afraid of it. This is everybody's experience. Maharaj, you have separated yourself from the world. Therefore it pains and frightens you. Discover your mistake and be free of fear. Question. You're asking me to give up the world, while I want to be happy in the world. Maharaj, if you ask for the impossible, who can help you? The limited is bound to be painful and pleasant in turns. If you seek real happiness, unassailable and unchangeable, You must leave the world with its pains and pleasures behind you. Question. How is it done? Maharaj, mere physical renunciation is only a token of earnestness. But earnestness alone does not liberate. There must be understanding, which comes with alert perceptivity, eager inquiry, and deep investigation. You must work relentlessly for your salvation from sin and sorrow. Questioner. What is sin? Maharaj, all that binds you. Appendix 1. Nisarga Yoga by Maurice Frydman. In the humble abode of Shri Nisargadatta Maharaj, but for the electric lights and the noises of the street traffic, one would not know in which period of human history one dwells. There is an atmosphere of timelessness about his tiny room. The subjects discussed are timeless, valid for all times. The way they are expounded and examined is also timeless. The centuries, millennia, and yugas fall off, and one deals with matters immensely ancient and eternally new. The discussions held and teachings given would have been the same 10,000 years ago and will be the same 10,000 years hence. There will always be conscious beings wondering about the fact of their being conscious and inquiring into its cause and aim. Whence am I? Who am I? Whither am I? Such questions have no beginning and no end, and it is crucial to know the answers, for without a full understanding of oneself, both in time and in timelessness, life is but a dream, imposed on us by powers we do not know, for purposes we cannot grasp. Maharaj is not a learned man. There is no erudition behind his homely Marathi. Authorities he does not quote. Scriptures are rarely mentioned. The astonishing rich spiritual heritage of India is implicit in him rather than explicit. No rich ashram was ever built around him, and most of his followers are humble working people, cherishing the opportunity of spending an hour with him from time to time. Simplicity and humility are the keynotes of his life and teachings. Physically and inwardly, he never takes the higher seat, the essence of being on which he talks. He sees in others as clearly as he sees it in himself. He admits that while he is aware of it, others are not yet. But this difference is temporary and of little importance, except to the mind and its ever-changing content. When asked about his yoga, he says he has none to offer, no system to propound, no theology, cosmogony, psychology, or philosophy. He knows the real nature, his own and his listeners, and he points it out. The listener cannot see it because he cannot see the obvious, simply and directly. All he knows with his mind, stimulated by the senses. That the mind is a sense in itself, he does not even suspect. The Nisarga Yoga, Nisarg, natural state, innate disposition. The natural yoga of Maharaj is disconcertingly simple. The mind, which is all becoming, must recognize and penetrate its own being, not as being this or that, here or there, then or now, but just timeless being. The timeless being is the source of both life and consciousness. In terms of time, space, and causation, it is all-powerful, being the causeless cause, all-pervading, eternal, in the sense of being beginningless, endless, and ever-present. Uncaused, it is free, all-pervading, it knows, undivided, it is happy, it lives, it loves, and it has endless fun, shaping and reshaping the universe. Every man has it, every man is it, but not all know themselves as they are, and therefore identify themselves with the name and shape of their bodies and the contents of their consciousness. To rectify this misunderstanding of one's reality, the only way is to take full cognizance of the ways of one's mind and to turn it into an instrument of self-discovery. The mind was originally a tool in the struggle for biological survival. It had to learn the laws and ways of nature in order to conquer it. That it did and is doing. For mind and nature working hand in hand can raise life to a higher level. But in the process, the mind acquired the art of symbolic thinking and communication, the art and skill of language. Words become important. Ideas and abstractions acquired an appearance of reality. The conceptual replaced the real, with the result that man now lives in a verbal world, crowded with words and dominated by words. Obviously, for dealing with things and people, words are exceedingly useful, but they make us live in a world totally symbolic and therefore unreal. To break out from this prison of the verbal mind into reality, one must be able to shift one's focus from the word to what it refers to, the thing itself. The most commonly used word and most pregnant with feelings and ideas is the word I. Mind tends to include in it anything and everything, the body as well as the absolute. In practice, it stands as a pointer to an experience which is direct, immediate, and immensely significant. To be, and to know that one is most important. And to be of interest, a thing must be related to one's conscious existence, which is the focal point of every desire and fear. For the ultimate aim of every desire is to enhance and intensify this sense of existence, while all fear is, in its essence, the fear of self-extinction. To delve into the sense of I, so real and vital, in order to reach its source, is the core of the Nisarga Yoga. Not being continuous, the sense of I must have a source from which it flows and to which it returns. This timeless source of conscious being is what Maharaj calls the self-nature, self-being, Swarup. As to the methods of realizing one's supreme identity with the self-being, Maharaj is peculiarly non-committal. He says that each has its own way to reality and that there can be no general rule. But for all the gateway to reality, by whatever road one arrives to it, is the sense of I am. It is through grasping the full import of the I am and going beyond it to its source that one can realize the supreme state, which is also the primordial and the ultimate. The difference between the beginning and the end lies only in the mind. When the mind is dark or turbulent, the source is not perceived. When it is clear and luminous, it becomes a faithful reflection of the source. The source is always the same, beyond darkness and light, beyond life and death, beyond the conscious and the unconscious. This dwelling on the sense I am is the simple, easy, and natural yoga, the Nisarga Yoga. There is no secrecy in it and no dependence. No preparation is required and no initiation. Whoever is puzzled by his very existence as a conscious being and earnestly wants to find his own source can grasp the ever-present sense of I am and dwell on it assiduously and patiently till the clouds obscuring the mind dissolve and the heart of being is seen in all its glory. The Nisarga Yoga, when persevered in and brought to its fruition, results in one becoming conscious and active in what one always was unconsciously and passively. There is no difference in kind, only in manner. The difference between a lump of gold and a glorious ornament shaped out of it. Life goes on, but it is spontaneous and free, meaningful and happy. Maharaj most lucidly describes this natural, spontaneous state. But as the man born blind cannot visualize light and colors, so is the unenlightened mind unable to give meaning to such descriptions. Expressions like dispassionate happiness, affectionate detachment, timelessness, and causelessness of things and being, they all sound strange and cause no response. Intuitively, we feel they have deep meaning and they create in us a strange longing for the ineffable, a forerunner of things to come, but that is all. As Maharaj puts it, words are pointers, they show the direction, but they will not come along with us. Truth is the fruit of earnest action. Words merely point the way. Appendix 2. Navnath Sampradaya. Hinduism comprises numerous sects, creeds, and cults, and the origin of most of them is lost in antiquity. The Nath Sampradaya, later known as the Navnath Sampradaya, is one of them. Some scholars are of the view that this sect originated with the teachings of the mythical Rishi Dattatreya, who is believed to be a combined incarnation of the holy trinity of Brahma, Vishnu, and Shiva. The unique spiritual attainments of this legendary figure are mentioned in the Bhagavad Puran, the Mahabharata, and also in some later Upanishads. Others hold that it is an offshoot of the Hatha Yoga. Whatever be its origin, the teachings of the Nath Sampradaya have, over the centuries, become labyrinthine in complexity and have assumed different forms in different parts of India. Some gurus of the Sampradaya lay stress on bhakti, devotion, others on jnana, knowledge, still others on yoga, the union with the ultimate. In the 14th century, we find Swat Marama Swami, the great Hatha Yogin, bemoaning the darkness arising of the multiplicity of opinions, to dispel which he lit the lamp of his famous work, Hatha Yoga Pradipika. According to some learned commentators, the Nath Gurus propound that the entire creation is born out of nada, sound, the divine principle, and bindu, light, the physical principle, and the supreme reality from which these two principles emanate is Shiva. Liberation, according to them, is merging of the soul into Shiva through the process of laya, dissolution of the human ego, the sense of I-ness. In the day-to-day instructions to their devotees, however, the Nath Gurus seldom refer to the metaphysics discovered by the scholars in their teachings. In fact, their approach is totally non-metaphysical, simple and direct. While the chanting of sacred hymns and devotional songs, as well as the worship of the idols, is a traditional feature of the sect, its teaching emphasizes that the supreme reality can be realized only within the heart. the Nath Sampradaya came to be known as Navnath Sampradaya when, sometime in the remote past, the followers of the sect chose 9 of their early gurus as exemplars of their creed. But there is no unanimity regarding the names of these 9 masters. The most widely accepted list, however, is as follows. 1. Matsyendranath. 2. Gorakhnath. 3. Jalandharnath. 4. Kantinath. 5. Gahininath. 6. Bhartrinath. 7. Revananath. 8. Charpatnath. And 9. Naganath. Of these 9 masters, Gahininath and Revananath had large followings in the southern part of India, including Maharashtra, the state to which Shri Nisargadatta Maharaj belongs. Revananath is said to have founded a subsect of his own and chose Kadasiddha as his chief disciple and successor. The latter initiated Linga Jangam Maharaj and Bhau Sahib Maharaj and entrusted to their care his ashram and the propagation of his teaching. Bhau Sahib Maharaj later established what came to be known as Ichchagiri Sampradaya, a new movement within the traditional fold. Among his disciples were Amburao Maharaj, Giri Maleshwar Maharaj, Siddh Rameshwar Maharaj, and the noted philosopher Mr. R. D. Ranade. Shri Nisargadatta Maharaj is the direct disciple and successor of Siddh Rameshwar Maharaj. It may be mentioned here that, though officially the current guru of the Ichchagiri branch of the Navanath Sampradaya, Shri Nisargadatta does not seem to attach much importance to sects, cults and creeds, including his own. In answer to a questioner who wished to join the Navanath Sampradaya, he said, "The Navanath Sampradaya is only a tradition, a way of teaching and practice. It does not denote a level of consciousness. If you accept a Navanath Sampradaya teacher as your guru, you join his Sampradaya. Your belonging is a matter of your own feeling and conviction. After all, it is all verbal and formal. In reality, there is neither ignorance nor realization. It all depends upon what you take yourself to be. Know yourself correctly. There is no substitute for self-knowledge." The teaching of Nath Sampradaya offers the seeker the royal road to liberation, a road in which all the 4 bylanes of Bhakti, Jnana, Karma and Dhyana seem to unite. Adinath Bhairav, said to be a manifestation of Lord Shiva, in his hagiography entitled Nath Lingamrita, claims that the path shown by the Nath sect is the best of all, and it leads direct to liberation.